We're seeing the SACP picketing outside. What exactly are they demanding?
Well, Tulas, the SACP has been very vocal about the issue of state capture. You remember, their then second Deputy General Secretary, who is now the first Deputy General Secretary, Solly Mapaila, was very vocal against state capture at some point in time, even calling the former president a runaway president who's been captured by the Gupta family. They were essentially here in Parktown to plead their support for the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, saying that they wanted to get down to the core business of the day of unraveling what they term corporate capture. But I'm now going to speak to the first Deputy General Secretary of the SACP, Solly Mapaila, who was leading this march alongside the SACP's Gauteng Provincial Leadership Chairperson John Pisi and the Provincial Secretary Jacob Mamabulo. Solly, what is the essence of the SACP's picket outside this Judicial Commission of Inquiry into state capture, what you term corporate capture?
Fundamentally is to support the work of the Commission and to deepen our South African constitutionalism and democracy, which we think the work of this Commission will seek to reclaim, so that all issues of integrity, of commitment to service can be restored within the value system of our constitutional democracy. And therefore, the march here also had some important aspect in the demands to ensure that the Commission does its work properly, it doesn't get compromised, and it investigate without fear or favor or prejudice. It must get to the root cause of the problem and make sure that all the people responsible for corporate capture of the state are able to account and, where possible, also to reclaim the resources of our country.
Even if it means that being one of your central committee members in the form of the deputy minister or the former minister, Ben Martins, who at a later stage became a deputy minister as well, even if it means he is implicated, he must also face the full wrath of the law if he's implicated and found guilty.
Yeah, most certainly. It doesn't have to be whether this is a member of the Communist Party or not. Every other person that is found to have played a role in assisting corporate capture of the state must account for their own actions, including our own members of our own party. If they are found, they must be able to account. And therefore, it is not, that's why we say to them, without fear or favor and prejudice. So we are here basically to say throughout, we'll support the work of the Commission, we'll continue to defend the Commission against those who are taking it, including those who are giving evidence, who are being intimidated, who have been vilified and so forth. And that's why we've said they must go to not only the junior ones, but also the most senior available who colluded in stealing from the people of South Africa.
Even if that means the former president, whom at one point in time you referred to as a runaway president who's been captured by the Gupta family, even if he's implicated, what is the then step of the SACP? Should he be found guilty of any wrongdoing, or the Commission finds that he gave his presidential duties away to the Gupta family, particularly after the revelations made by Mcebisi Jonas today, saying the Guptas indeed did offer him that ministry position and a 600 million rands bribe?
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, we've said, we've always understood the fact that ultimately when the Guptas were protected in many ways, including through state institutions, state organs that threatened several people that came out to speak against them, we then realized that actually the godfather of the entire project was the then president, former President Jacob Zuma. So we will not be surprised when the kind of details that came out today are quite shocking. We expect more shocking details and evidence coming out throughout the entire Commission process. And I think quite surely those who played some role at the back and so forth, I think throughout this, we expect most of that kind of detail to come out. We had never actually expected that it will be this deep. When we engaged President Zuma at the time, we were just making sure that the movement, the ANC and the alliance that he leads, actually can be protected from those who are trying to influence unduly the decisions in government, in cabinet and so on. Little did we know at that time the networks that have been set up, the network that were now functioning even independent of their daily mandates. And therefore, we are expecting more to come out. And of course, we were shocked from the beginning, but we want to express our support to Comrade Mcebisi as well for the bravery that he showed in coming out much more clearly, but also in rejecting the temptations, like many of our comrades, including our comrades here in the province, who have done well, who have refused to participate in any form of corruption, who we know are paying a heavy price. They are being targeted, they are being isolated, they are being vilified, and we understand that all those that have fought against corporate capture and corruption will continue to be vilified going forward. But we can say those who are embarking on that fight back strategy won't win. South Africa will ultimately win.
Will your Central Committee member, Ben Martins, appear before this commission to testify? Has the SACP spoken about the allegations he faces over state capture, in what you term corporate capture? Have you had any engagements with him?
Well, initially when this matter came out, we asked Comrade Ben to explain himself. He did explain himself to the Central Committee, and of course he went to Parliament. He gave his evidence there in Parliament, where he practically distanced himself from the entire process. We hope that's still the case. Of course, going forward, he will be within his rights to defend himself in that particular space. But otherwise, we asked him to account, and he did account to the party and indicated that these were just mere allegations. He's not involved at all.
Any small skeletons of donations from the Guptas to the SACP?
No. We never received money from the Guptas as the SACP.
Well, to us, there was Solima Paila saying they were essentially here to pledge their support to this commission, which is looking into state capture, and also saying that they are very proud and they thank Mcebisi Jonas for his bravery and for coming on to testify here. But one of their own, who sits in the Central Committee of the Communist Party, Ben Martins, has also been embroiled, or allegedly been embroiled, in this issue of state capture. They are saying they asked him as the SACP to come and account and give his version of the story. Solima Paila saying he, Ben Martins, also distanced himself from this, what they term these parasitic networks that were operating outside the government.
Samkele, a bit unorthodox for me to do this, but I did have a glimpse of the memorandum of demands that the SACP handed over at that picket, and it includes a startling claim that says the commission itself is under threat of possible capture, possible corporate capture, which would be something extraordinary, a commission of inquiry into state capture also being captured. Are you able to ask Solima Paela about that? What exactly do they know that we don't know?
Let me throw it to him, Tulas, a very important point that you raised there. Solima Paela, you say that the commission itself is in threat of corporate capture. Where are these allegations that you have stemming from? Do you have any information that we particularly don't have?
No, our provincial secretary can talk about that. He's the one that raised this bet. But what you were broadly saying was the fact that we heard in the papers that one of the lawyers could be implicated and therefore needed not to be part and parcel of the commissioners and so forth. So it was just that particular matter. But the broad thing is that we are talking about big money here. And we don't want, we are calling in our memorandum that they must give a commitment to work for the people of the country and not be tempted by big offers. Very few will come out like Mcebisi Jonas, who rejected over 600 million. And we can understand why 600 million. I mean, initially we thought, oh gosh, Mcebisi maybe wanted to say 6 million or something like that. No, it's precisely because these people were taking the state. These people were taking the entire budget of the state, deciding what to do. If you read the work done by the academics with the South African Council of Churches, there's a section where it shows within the state on enterprises the procurement possibility that they control exceeding 200 billion. And we're still having our youth on the streets fighting for free higher education, and 200 billion is being wasted, when actually a few of those could be taken to bridge that gap.
Let me throw this question directly to Jacob Mabulo, the Provincial Secretary. Where is the startling allegation coming from, Jacob Mabulo, that this commission may be captured by corporate capture by itself?
No, the point I was making was that we are monitoring the work of the commission. We will be looking at them quite closely, and the point we're making was that they themselves have to resist temptations at being captured, because the capturers will also try to manipulate them. So it was merely a warning to them that if they are not decisive in their work, they could actually be manipulated themselves. And already we have seen in today's papers that there's a lawyer who has got very dodgy links, who is being apparently in the process of being appointed, not yet appointed. So it is important that we warn the commissioners, because the 10 billion that has been stolen from public institutions is doing rounds everywhere. So the commission itself must be cautioned against dangers of potentially being captured. So that was just a brotherly advice to the commissioners, that be very careful of the dangers of corporate capture of the commission itself. And we can't say that there won't be attempts. Comrade Soli, and of course our memorandum was indicating there will be intimidation. We have seen in the paper so-called fight back. So fight back could include various measures. So the point we're making is we will always be here, we will be watching them, checking them, whilst we trust them, but we're also saying they must be very careful at attempts to capture them.
Who would capture them?
The capturers.
Who are those capturers?
They will be coming here one by one.
You said 10 million from Dubai.
At the center of allegations of corporate capture of the state is the Gupta dynasty, the Gupta clan itself. This is captured in the report. It's not something that we are conspiring to make. It's stated in the report, and this commission is essentially about the role of the Gupta dynasty, the Gupta clan, to steal organs of our democratic state.
Well,